I'm continually inspired, and it continually helps me to look at myself, like what learnings can I take that I can apply to my own life. But you'd have to ask my wife whether I've actually applied anything. I never call it a job. I always think of it as a ministry. The way that I serve is through sharing the incredible stories across our Pasifika global diaspora. When I bring the guest on, I do them the service and the honour of giving all of myself in that moment. And you can see guys like Andrew Tate, you can see all these things where you're saying like, this is the way a man is. But to me, when I read the word, it says, you know, when I'm weak, I'm strong.
What's the current state of men out there right now?
That's such a good question, and I'll be honest.
Mandate.
Hi everyone, if you are enjoying the content and the guests that are on the podcast and you're wanting more, then please do us a favor. If you can just press the subscribe button, that would be an amazing help for us. But also, just want to mention an amazing organization called AOK, who sponsors the Mandate podcast. And so they are an organization that runs suicide prevention, intervention and wellbeing programs. And so AOK stands for Acts of Kindness. And so you didn't need me to tell you about the alarmingly high rates of suicide in our nation, especially amongst our rangatahi, our young people, even our tane, our men. And so if you're wanting to stand in the gap and you want to be well trained and well equipped to have these courageous life supporting conversations, then please check them out, aok.nz. If you're a business, a company or a collective, or even as an individual, check them out, www.aok.nz. You could very well be that one person to help save a life. Welcome to Mandate, where we navigate fresh perspectives and nothing is off the table. Tonight's guest is from Tāmaki Makaurau, but originally from the 04 Hurricane City in Wellington. And so he's an amazing individual, incredible man who's a familiar voice on the radio airwaves. So you recognize that voice on PMN, Radio 531 PI. But also the man is, he's also renowned for his MC skills. He's an amazing communicator, masters of ceremonies, and it's probably one of the best, maybe even the best in Aotearoa, New Zealand. But also the man is a recipient of the Queen's Medal of Service for his service in the Pacifica community in Aotearoa. But above all of those things, he's an amazing father, amazing husband, but also has an amazing story to share. Please put your hands together for the man himself, the one and only Brian Sagala!
Thank you. We'll just allow the size of one's head just to go down a few pounds so that we can just allow yourselves to talk freely again. Thank you. Oh, so kind, so kind. Thank you.
Oh my Lord, love it, Brian. Hey, it's I think it's one of those things, Brian, because you've always been in the cards in terms of having you join us at the table. And so also, I thought just to start the ball rolling, and obviously welcome to Mandate. But start the ball rolling because I always wanted to know the backstory, the backstory as to how you got into broadcasting, but also and how has it shaped you thus far in terms of who you are as an individual, but more so as a man.
I think my broadcasting journey hasn't just started. I'm going into my 9th year now at 531 Pacific Media Network, but it actually started maybe 20-something years ago. So there was an opportunity through Reo Atamutu, it was known as back then, 1593 AM, which is now the frequency for Radio Samoa. And so I was part of a team, the Three Amigos. So myself, there was Brian Marsh, there was also Francis Stowers and Albert Wipani. So even though we were the Three Amigos, there were four of us. And so that's, yeah, so it was like a youth-focused show. And funnily enough, one of the guys on the youth show before us was Faleti Pua, who would go on to be part of the incredible Nija Mystic. Yes. And so fast forward how many years later, I got a stint on Radio Samoa through my cousin, Ane. I'm sure she won't mind me.
Ane.
So that's my cousin here in Louis. And so I used to do a show on Saturday afternoons called Crazy Kokonati, and was doing that for a while because I don't know how I got the gig because my plasticity when it comes to the Ngangana Samoa. And so I was doing that for a while, and then Nick Minute I come in one day, and then Ane goes, "Oh, Ma, we could have a talk." And then we sat down at the table, and I went, "Oh, you're firing me, eh?" And she goes, and I went, oh, you're firing me. She goes, well, you hardly turn up. And I was going, oh, I suppose, because I was getting a lot of, gigs. MC work has been consistent over the years. And I was like, I wasn't ever angry, but it's quite funny because it's, getting fired by your own family. So it's good.
Hey, Pastor.
We still see each other at our family mafutangas every few months and that, so that's awesome.
That's cool.
But then for the latest one, it's a real God move. So back in 2014, I was working for an insurance company, UE, Australian insurance company. I didn't like it at all. And this is just my own opinion, my own experience having worked there. And I worked there, I started and finished a year to the date that I started. I walked out there. I had never taken any sick leave. I'd never taken a day off. I was always on time. And as much as I didn't like the job, I tried my very best. And I think that in itself is a lesson to anyone about, being a person of integrity. I've always had that thing and modelled after my parents that if I leave a job, I'm going to leave with a good name so that if ever an opportunity or, falls through or that, I can always go back and people go, oh yeah, Brian, no, he was good. So during that time that I was working there, catching the train to Ellerslie, and many times when I was catching the train, I'd literally be crying out. I'd be crying out and I'd be praying to God. I'd be going, Father, please bless me with a job which will utilise the gifts and talents that you've blessed me with. And so again, a year to the date that I finished with the UE Insurance, I started at Pacific Media Network, Radio 531 PI, and 9 years later, it's still I never call it a job. I always think of it as a ministry. And the way that I serve is through sharing the incredible stories across our Pacifica global diaspora. And man, when I'm the stories, what I love is that I'm in a studio here in Manukau, but one day I can be over in London, another day I can be over in LA, I can be all over the place, and through the power of modern day technology and that, with Zoom and that and Facebook, able to share those stories all around the world. And I had a recent look or estimate in terms of the number of interviews over 9 years, and it's around between 3,500, 4,000 interviews. So even though it might be a series that I do every week, but if you add individually, we're looking at around 3,000 plus interviews over 9 years. Yeah.
How do you do that, then, Brian? Because I know we touched on it a little bit early on. You said, "Hey, man, just be present." And how do you keep that genuinity in terms of when you're talking to someone? Because you're okay, I'm just doing the same thing. And I know you guys have a time frame. Okay, come in. Yes, thank you very much. You got to go. But how do you keep it fresh? And how do you keep to the place where you're like, well, I'm still in there. I'm excited about every time, every guest that comes on, especially when you've done over 4,000. Like, how do you do that?
To me, it's all about being present with the guest. Every day is the same, but every day is different. I may be talking to 3 different guests, and it might even be on the same topic, but when I bring the guest on, I do them the service and the honour of giving all of myself in that moment. Because if you're going to reach out to somebody and bring them on, it's the worst thing where you bring them on and you're just sitting around and looking around. You got to hone in. You got to make sure that you're present with the guest and that you're respecting their time, but also just allowing them to share whatever topic that they may be talking on. And for me, it's never about myself. A lot of times you'll never see my face, and my reasoning behind that is that I'm there to share the story of the guest. So early on in the piece, when I was at 531, I always used to get really, really nervous until one day a former program director, Nadia Marsh, and kia ora, Nadia, saying it's not about you. It's never about you. It's always about the guest. And when I heard that, then it immediately helped me in that when I bring a guest on, regardless of how I'm feeling, it's always about sharing what the talent has to offer. I'm just there to facilitate what they have to bring and what they have to share with our audiences. And you asked earlier also about how it's shaped and impacted me in terms of my life. when I do a lot of speaking engagements and that, one thing I always like to share, especially with our young people, is never live down to the stereotypes. Never live down to the stereotypes. I'm a very proud Poriruian, born and raised in Porirua, and if you look at areas like Porirua, Otara, South Auckland, you can go to Flaxmere, you can go to where Aranui down in Christchurch, and that in a lot of these communities which are called underprivileged, where a lot of times they'll get the negative headlines in there, but you go and live in each of these communities, there's just so much gold there, and that's what I love about my job, and it's the why, it's the driving force through the ups and downs of this career, is that I get to share stories which predominantly are not seen on mainstream media. But to me, I've never cared about mainstream. To me, serving our Pacific community in my capacity as a broadcaster, that's my media in there, and I could spend this whole talanoa sharing about the number of amazing people. I'll share maybe 3 stories that just come to mind. So recently, Drink the Milgi, one of the founders, I think it's Ken Angi, or he was one of the 3 founders. And so when I interviewed him recently, only a year in to releasing officially Drink the Milgi health drink, they had just secured a deal with Countdown to supply 22 Countdown Woolworths across Aotearoa. This is their first up deal. The way he secured it was cold calling. He just rang up, or I think he walked in, and when he pitched the idea, he just shared the vision of Drink the Milky. Now, 22 stores, right? But the deal is around 4,000 units a week across that deal. And this is just the introductory deal. Jeez. Born and raised in Otara. Huh? So the next kid I always like to cite is a kid by the name of Tristan Mona. I interviewed him years ago, and at the time I think he was year 13 or year 12 at Avondale College. He entered the Microsoft PowerPoint Global Competition. He was the first Pacific, I think, Māori European to win it, first Kiwi, yeah? But it gets even better. He was one of over 800,000 entrants from around the world in this competition, with combined entries exceeding 1 million.
Oh, man.
And then the last one I always love to cite as well, Chief Master Sergeant, I think was the title at the time, because this was going back a number of years as well, Matamua Loretta Washington, and she was born and raised in Otara, and a daughter of a whaiwhi ao. So when I spoke to her, again, I'm sorry I can't remember the year, she was the highest ranking Polynesian in the US Armed Forces, and she was in control of a base which had a community of over like 50,000 people, which they were serving daily. And this was in Phoenix or Arizona. So those are just 3, again, of literally thousands of interviews where just time and time again I'm inspired. And that's the other part about how, you get bored of it. Never. Because every day there's always something new. There's always something so interesting that just blows my mind. Recently I did a talanoa on water cremation. Funeral directors down in Christchurch, which they're trying to introduce. Water cremation, which is quite common. It's actually legal over in Australia at the moment.
No way.
Yeah. So that's another one. And then another guy, amazing guy by the name of Nick Eschel. So just earlier this month, I think, or last month, he had just completed a run across Australia. He's one of only 5 or less than 5 humans ever to run the length of Australia and the United States. When he did his first attempt at the US, however far in, he was a victim of a hit and run, and it took him I think he said about maybe a year to 18 months to recover. Once he recovered, he went back and he started from the the point where he was hit, and then he continued and he finished. So again, one of only 5 or so people ever to run the length of both Australia, or just under 4,000 Ks, and the US. that's what I say. Every single day, just sharing amazing stories, and that's the way that it impacts me. I'm continually inspired, and it continually helps me to look at myself like, oh, sis, how can, what learnings can I take that I can apply to my own life? But you'd have to ask my wife whether I've actually applied anything.
They look.
They look when don't ask their questions.
Yeah, I tell you what, Brian, because it is. I can see it straight away. I can see you talking about the guests that have come on. Just the excitement and obviously the pure adrenaline in terms of it and being proud, proud Pacifica. But you're right. Obviously, those people wouldn't probably even make it in the mainstream media in terms of being heard of. But you have the great opportunity to have these telenors with these people, and so in terms of you yourself. As a Pacifica, young, of course, young.
Can you say young?
Young Samoan man, young Samoan man, and so as a Samoan and as proud Pacifica, do you feel you have you kind of you're like the voice of our people at the moment because you're on the airwaves? How do you feel about that?
No, never. It's never been my responsibility to carry because, as I said, the way that this came about was, I believe, through God. So God gave the opportunity, so he's the one, the pressure's on him. Hey, the pressure's on him. From time to time, I'll get recognition in that, and that's all good, but it's never been my why. And the testimonies are like cream, it's the sort of cream, but it's never the reason why. It's never for adoration. It's never for fanfare. The sole reason for me is to share the amazing stories, the width, the breadth of Aotearoa across the blue continent and again around the world where our Pacifica inhabit in the different places and spaces. One testimony that comes to mind, I was doing a gig many years ago at Waipuna Hotel in Mount Wellington. And during a break, a lady she was making a beeline for me, and she was crying. Yeah, she was crying, and it was like, she's looking at me, and she was getting closer and closer, and I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I've only had one wife that I know of, and it's like, and she comes up to me, and then it gets even worse. Oh, are you Brian Sagala? And I went, okay, I can't deny it. That's my name. That's on my birth certificate. And I go, oh, yes. And then she goes, my mother recently passed from cancer. And I was like, oh, okay. And she said, during her final months, 531 PI brought great comfort to her and our family during that time. So I want to thank you, but please pass on our sincere thanks from our family to 531 PI for helping us through that time. Wow. When you hear stuff like that, it is so humbling. And again, it comes back to the sharing of the stories. I don't feel any responsibility or feel that I have any profile as such. For me, the way that I look at it, it's a daily grind of my saying that I've said over the years working at 531, one voice break at a time. You just concentrate on one voice break at a time. You stuff up one, okay, that's that, but you still got another voice break coming up, so you just focus on the one voice break at a time. And also just trying to bring a spirit of excellence, which is modelled after my parents, like many of our Pacifica parents, immigrants to New Zealand. I grew up the son of a cleaner while all my friends were out playing during the school holidays as a 9-year-old. I'm at Tairangi school, just doing the buffing and looking out the window and seeing all these kids running around, and it's like those tears in your eyes, Who knows how to use a buffing machine at the age of 9? But, growing up and just seeing how hard my parents worked, I don't have any sort of major qualifications. I attended drama school back in 2000, but that was as a 30-year-old. I finally got to fulfill a dream of mine. But even then, I was scared. It was my wife who had actually enrolled me. If it wasn't for my darling, I would never even done drama school and that. So for me, just modelling what I see after my parents, and I always like to... I always say, if somebody is allowing me the privilege of speaking to them in their homes, in the places that they occupy, it's only right that I do the very best by them in terms of technical, in terms of prepping, in terms of facilitating of the talanoa. That's the way I see it.
You talk about obviously mum and dad instrumental in your life, but also you brought up porirua. And so I'm just curious in terms of porirua, because you grew up in obviously the 04 Wellington, and so you talked about your mum and dad. You're helping mum and dad clean and the cleaning business. But tell us, walk us through in terms of porirua and kind of like a little bit of your childhood.
Sure. So my dad, Pepe Salatielu Sagala, he's from the village of Vaiee, and I think Fusi as well in Sawhaka. And Mum, she's from the villages of Samaunga and Vaisala. And so they met up in the 60s and that, and married. I was born in 1970, so Ma'a is after, so many people think it's my matai, but my name Ma'a is actually, I'm named after my grandpa, so Sagala Ma'a. And then Brian, even though my parents misspelled it with the I was named after a tui whaasasina, Sir Brian Williams. So I was born in November, but earlier in that year, I think around June or that, he was touring South Africa with the ABs, and he was the first Samoan Pacifica AB to tour South Africa. And you know, for any rugby fans, you know what he did on the field. He was like the first Pacifica rugby superstar, and you know, trailblazing for that generation and for future ABs. And so over the years, I've had the pleasure of meeting him in person, and in one particular event, I think it was for the launch of the Pacifica strategy for NZR, maybe end of last year, when I was introducing him, I shared that story of how I was named after him and how it was a great honour, and especially when I think, because my daddy passed in 2009, and so having that moment, I would have, you know, thinking about my dad and what he would, oh man, you know, like just he's a very quiet man. I think I get my loudness from my mum. She's a very loud person. When we used to playing rugby league once, down in Pro, I don't know if I was playing for Waitangitua Vikings or another team back then, and I asked, oh please come, I'm always begging you to come along. And the one time that she comes to watch our game, because we live right next door to Park where we were playing, she almost got into a fight with he just asked one time, and I was like, oh no, never again. But I'm the eldest of four boys, Yese, Paulo and Suesi. Grew up in Ascot Park. If you ever see me do MCing in that, one of my introductions, I always honour my roots, you know. Tairangi Kindergarten, Rangikura Primary School, Waitangitua Intermediate, Aotea College, that's me, that's who I am. I've actually lived in New Zealand since 1988, so that's about, 35 years. But if you ask me right now, where are you from? I always say, you know, it's always the same. I'm from Porirua, because even though I left at the age of 18, the formative years and how it helped lay that foundation for me, and also growing up in the 70s and 80s as a son of the Pacific. In Porirua at that time, it was a very prosperous and thriving city. We had the likes of Todd Motors, employers, you know, the main employer, and my dad, my uncle Salamo that lived with us, they were working for Ashley Wallpaper and stuff like that. So it was just beautiful times growing up. There was no social media, of course, and so we'd spend our holidays either playing at the park, we'd be walking down to Paremata and jumping off the bridge down there, you know, showing each other, doing our bombs and all this stuff. And so I very much loved my upbringing, and that the good, the bad and the ugly. We were attending E Whakasa, Waihemo, and shout out to Reverend Yoritana and Lonise for many of our E Whakasa here in Auckland, especially out in Grey Lynn. You think, oh, but they were always at Grey Lynn, or that? No. I think their first posting was actually in Porirua, E Whakasa, Waihemo. And so all that combined with school, with friends from the neighbourhood and that, and just living life, it laid, as I say, a very strong foundation for where I am now. Yeah.
Jeez.
That's cool.
Yeah. But it is, I think, because your characteristics and your attributes, you're larger than life. Brian, and you said, yeah, man, wherever you are, I know that laugh. I know that laugh. Wherever I go, I know that laugh. I know that voice, man. And because obviously, you said your mom was kind of like the loud one, and it seems like, I don't know, it seems like the case sometimes. You have a quiet dad, and then all of a sudden, then the son is the opposite, or the daughter's the opposite, or vice versa. The mom's loud and the son's quiet. But in terms of your parents and your upbringing, tell us, because I know Dad passed on, or and so maybe just tell us a little bit in terms of your parents and so forth.
So Dad passed in 2009. He passed away from, I think it was prostate cancer, and quite a miracle, because a few years before, or that, he had been diagnosed and given 6 months to live, and he actually lived to much longer than expected. And when I asked him about it once, and he was saying one day, I love this. The simplicity of faith, but faith of a mustard seed. He just said, I prayed one day and I said, Jesus, take away this dirty blood and replace it with your blood. And then he lived much longer than expected. I was either that, or he shared a story. There's a story about a king who was told he was going to die within a certain time in the Old Testament, and he pleaded before the Lord, please, 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 and the Lord added another 15 years. So it was either one of those two stories. He was a very quiet man, but he was a great servant. He was a man of great character and a man of great love. Now, Mum, our relationship's a bit different, and especially with first generation New Zealand, because the eye again, you're going into territory. I'm uncomfortable. But you know what? Sadly, and this is the way a lot of our first generation we deal with it. We laugh because if you think about the trauma into the sun today, this eye followed by this eye, followed by your nose and then your toes. Mum was the disciplinarian in our family, and she had all the letters for her degree, her masters in theology, psychology, physicology. So she was so very inventive with all different aspects of kitchenware, clothing. She was so Then when you say this word pivot, man, she was able to pivot with her knee and her elbow. She was able to pivot and that. But she's a hard woman. But years later, so currently Mum she moved over from Samoa, and she was living with us for 2 years. So currently she's in a home in Mangere, CHT, rest home. And since she's come over, we've had a number of opportunities to talanoa about her earlier upbringing, and man, it was not good, taking into consideration that her older brother was actually her teacher. And so one example, because I want to be respectful to my family, but if my uncle ever wanted to make an example, or kids were playing up, she would be the one that he would take it out on to make an example of. And so that's just one aspect. And then having to go and pretty much be looking after her older brother's kids and that. So up until about the age of 19, between 12 and 19, she was living with her brother, and she was pretty much the maid against her will. She never wanted to go live with him. And then coming to New Zealand, not knowing anybody and all these different things. So while I say it's still not acceptable, physical violence in any way, shape or form, it's not acceptable. But seeing through that lens of her past and how she was not able to deal or navigate that space of trauma in her own life, I understand. But sadly, it's that thing where if you don't deal with the trauma in your life, if you don't walk it out, if you don't bring closure in that, all you're going to do, you're going to pass it on to the next generation. And sadly for me, I've been guilty a number of times where I've pretty much done what I said I would never do to my own children, in the way I excuse it and justify, but I'm not as bad as my mum. I haven't given you guys anywhere near as many hidings as your mum. But that may be the case, but the trauma, the dysfunction will still manifest itself, even in your words, even in your tone, because a lot of times, as we know, words can be so much more hurtful and have much more impacts and consequences than violence, acts of violence are.
Man, but maybe we can start there also in terms of the trauma. I can totally understand the trauma. Obviously, you've grown up in the kind of similar era in the 80s, and so obviously Mum and Dad migrated from Samoa, and just the different upbringing. And you're right. Sometimes I've been guilty. Oh, I'll never do this to my kids. Oh, you know, I'm gonna raise them up this way because mum and dad, you know, quite the disciplinary style. But also in terms of maybe, and even with Brad also, how, in terms of our men in this day and age, what are some of the patterns and what are some of the things that we need to change? Obviously the mindset, but maybe some of the things in terms of physical abuse and violence. What do we need? What do you see out there, or what do you think we need to do to be better men? It's
the power of talanoa. It really is. Being able to gather around a table as we're doing this evening, breaking bread, and just having those heart-to-hearts, because many times men will not have that opportunity to share, to speak, to be in places where they feel safe, being vulnerable and letting those things out. And a lot of times it's like the volcano, where it'll just build. There's no outlet. And then sadly, when it explodes, the ones who are closest to the eruption, 9 times out of 10, are the ones that we purport to say we love the most, but yet they're the ones that suffer the most. So I really believe about the power of talanoa and being able to just to speak with someone. I think also for my own self, faith has played such a big part. Back in the 24th of April 1989 at Auckland Girls Grammar School, I attended a rally by a preacher by the name of Barry Smith.
Barry Smith, yeah.
If you know Barry Smith, yeah. And you go, how do you get saved at a Barry Smith rally? 666.
Barry Smith, the end times, eschatology.
Yeah. And he's talking, and I'm like the whole time, I was like,
Barry
like
Smith.
In my head, but I'm just like, oh yeah. But here, this is where the craziness of God. So Barry Smith, after all that and scaring literally the bejesus out of me, he puts a call out if anyone wants to ask Jesus into their lives. And when he made that call, I'll never forget it. I felt a warmth and a love that I had never known my entire life. And I don't know what happened. I zoned out. I must have floated down to the front, but I was the first one there, and I turned around. I didn't even know how I got to the front. Yeah, and then I said the Lord's Prayer, and then after that, I was perfect. Yes. Yeah, so, okay.
I was resaved again.
Yeah. Well, okay, so even though I'm perfect in Jesus, the reality of actually walking that out year after year. So don't say, oh wow, the man 70-something years in the Lord. Yeah, I mean that's just a date that I remember, but it's the daily walking out that's the real. And for our husbands too, the other thing, not just talanoa with brothers, with your wives. Talanoa with your wives. We went to some counselling sessions a number of years ago. I think Pastor Dick Lewis. And one of the exercises they got us to do was you have to talanoa face to face, eye to eye, as husband and wife. And it's because we're like maybe 20-something years into our marriage. We celebrate 29-year anniversary on the 2nd of December this year, 1995. So, you know, you got to see, hey, yeah, you got to remember these things, hey. Nice. No, hey, what's your anniversary again? So, the first time we did it, and I was like, oh, okay. I tell you, man, it took our marriage to another level. We spoke, and you know how you hear that saying about the eyes are the window to the soul? Man, there's nothing like being vulnerable. There's vulnerable with brothers, but when you're vulnerable with your wife, and so, you know, just things like that. We're not by no means a perfect couple, but I praise God that he blessed me with a woman who has a genuine, sincere love for people. And I go, man, I wish I could have more of that, you know. But she inspires me every day, and we make an effort. When we have disagreements and arguments and that, we always come back together and we always talanoa afresh and just share. She's my best friend. For real, she's my best friend. I'm not one of those husbands that you know, I'm not saying there's heaps of us out there, but I'm not one of those, I'm just going to go hang out with the boys tonight. That nah, never. Just me and my wife, me and my kids and that. And if we go hang out, we've got our close circle of friends that we go and we break bread, and a lot of our very close friends, they actually have a lot of kids like us. So for us, we have 7 children. And we have 10 grandchildren. I always say 10 because one of our grandbabies is being raised in heaven by angels. But we have a very, very big family. And so sometimes I might get the, oh man, there goes Father Abraham. But again, we try and model to our children about talanoa. We haven't done it for a while, but one of our things that we do as a family, we don't have locals as such, but every Sunday we just come together and we just do a round table. Okay, how are you doing? What's, everyone, and we take turns leading, and then just, okay, we'll share, and then we just do general business about housekeeping and stuff like that, and then we finish off praying. So just something simple like that, and you do that consistently. I believe that that will start to build, strengthen and deepen the relationships within the family. But you've got to be prepared to be vulnerable with each other. Some of the stuff that I've heard my kids say is like, oh, my life, I never knew. And there's still a lot of stuff that I most probably don't know. But what I do thank God for is that with our children, we can be honest, and likewise that we can allow spaces when Dad doesn't allow his emotions to take over. Doesn't allow his emotions to go, what the man, I missed school again, for goodness sake, and all this stuff. But the times where we are able just to be honest and to be open, I think that really not only models to our kids, but also allows them to develop and be themselves, and start growing and learning and being independent in their own lives, even though 5 of the 7 are still at home. And but they pay board.
Yeah, exactly.
See on the camera? They pay board. None of this. Someone, I don't make my kids. Oh, that's why you're behind in your rent. Yeah.
Oh man,
there was so much in there that was amazing. Hearing about your wife being a best friend, and that's cool. And I think that's almost a narrative that's not pushed enough. A lot of us like, man, I can't wait to go hang out with the boys. Like my ball and chain, like that kind of talk is kind of frustrating. So there's definitely that stereotype that it's cool that you're already breaking that. Pete, have you got anything to add on to what he just said?
Oh man, I think what you said is awesome. Also, more than anything, I totally agree. And it is. You said being vulnerable and having this conversation with your wife. It's something that is quite hard, because you think, oh no, we know each other.
Yeah.
But like, I'm interested in when you said that you kind of sat down and you kind of eye to eye, and you had to face each other and really talk. Can you describe for us how they felt from the onset? And you said it went to another level. How did it go to another level?
It was actually very scary. You think you know someone after, as I say, we were maybe 20-something years into our marriage, and yet we had never done something like this. A lot of times when we, especially if we get angry, I'll be lying down and talking, shouting, and she's looking the other way. But when you're looking eye to eye with your wife, there's no place to hide. Do you know what I mean? There's no place to hide, and you're speaking eye to eye, but you're speaking heart to heart, and you can literally see into. They say that again, the eyes are the window to the soul, so there's no place to hide. But there's a real strength in that, and when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, and it takes your trust levels also to another level where this is me and this is all that I am, and I'm willing to go there with you. So being in that place of complete trust, but also complete vulnerability in your marriage, that's where, for me, the strength and the building up. When you don't have anything to hide with your wife, there's been there's been a few incidents in our marriage which could have, in other circumstances, been real deal breakers in that. And so, without going into too much detail, but yet one thing I always believe around marriage, you always got to be prepared to fight for your marriage. You got the honeymoon period, but after the honeymoon period's finished, and what then? It's like, because it's not always going to be a bed of roses. It's more like a roller coaster, So, but in every day, it's I choose you. Every day I choose you to be my wife. I choose you to be my husband. I choose you, Pikachu. You know, sorry about that.
Your wife's going to be like, hey, you singing on Pikachu?
I got the app. Oh, wait. Double points. But, you know, you gotta be prepared to choose each other every day, and you got to be prepared to fight for your marriage. Funnily enough, how we met, I always love sharing this story.
Tell us.
So we used to work at, twins now, working income, but when we first met at social welfare, my wife was actually my supervisor. Yeah, so she had just come back from maternity leave with the twins. So I've been with the twins since they were 2. I never considered to me, they're my sons. And so the first time I laid eyes on her, I said, that's the woman I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. Yeah. And so it was like one of those things in the movies like Grease or something. I don't know.
Zuko, Daddy Zuko.
No, what's the Tom Cruise movie? You know, which one? The one Show Me the Money, or like I'm just.
Jerry Maguire.
Maybe not Jerry Maguire.
Hello.
What is it, Julia or Notting Hill or something? You know, I'm just a girl, or I'm just a boy standing in front of a girl. Anyway,
Notting Hill. Notting Hill.
It is Notting Hill. Yeah. So one day I asked her into the office, one of the supervisor officers while they were away at lunch, and bro, it was just like a movie. She was standing there, and she was like, "Oh, okay," and then I was just like, okay, it's now or never. Oh, Alberta, I have feelings for you. Yeah, that's how we did it back in the day. I have feelings for you, and I would like to be in a relationship with you. Yeah, bro, I don't muck around. These guys from P-Town, we don't muck around. So looking at you, it's like I'm looking at you now. I have feelings for you, and I want to be in a relationship with you. And then it was that moment where 1 second seems like 5 years, and then it was that one. Oh, Brian. And then that line where somebody wrote so many years ago, and it's been in so many movies, I'm sorry, I don't think of you in that way. And so that was the first of about maybe 100 rejections over the next 2-3 years. But you know what? Praise the Lord, he gave me some form of persistence, because I just, it's just like with your parents, you just keep on going back for more rejections.
Affirmation.
I keep going back for your stupid. I keep going back for your dumb. I keep on going back for your useless. And so after about the 100th time, and on the 99th time, I said, nah, that's it. I had my heart broken too many times. And then finally she saw the light. And yeah, I don't know if that one time where I was at her house, outside her house at 8 o'clock in winter, looking through the sitting room window, might have made a difference. But people say stalking, I say persistence. It's persistence. Persistence.
Oh man.
Yeah. So we've been together over 30 years and married 29 in December this year, 2nd December. Wow. But again, like I say, what is it? Fight for your marriage every day and be transparent. If I can share anything with those that are looking to get married, do this before you get married. Speak to each other. Lay everything out on the table. Everything, so that when you go into your marriage, there are no surprises that can come back and bite you later in the bum. But also, it's a way of being vulnerable with each other, that if you are going to choose me as a life partner, I want to know who I'm actually going into this relationship with, because you can do all the bells and whistles, you can buy the flowers, you can and then after a year or two, and it's like, whoa, hey, I never knew this about you. So I would recommend, if you are looking at getting married, or you're in the midst of doing marriage classes, whatever, do that. Get it all out of your system, so there's no surprises when you go into your marriage. Transparency, vulnerability. Yeah, man.
But what do you say to those, Brian? Because you might be the listeners and viewers, like, hey, well, how do you do that? How do you fight for your marriage? And even before marriage, people don't think about the marriage. They think about the wedding. They think about the wedding, and then you got these things on social media, all these individuals are saying, oh man, a high value man, you're a high value man or high value woman, all that kind of stuff, and then people are like, oh no, all these things that you put into the mix, and then you look at some of the high rates of divorce now, and people are just moving on and finding another partner, and so you, in the midst of all the noise, what do you think that our men or people need to hear, like in terms of just stay in the fight?
It's literally physically just staying. when something, an issue that arises, I mentioned that term deal breaker, don't let anything ever be a deal breaker. And I only share this because of that it can help someone. Fidelity played a part in our marriage, me. Okay, so that played a part, and my wife had every right to walk out on me. Now, I don't go into the details. Okay, I kissed a woman. There you go. But to me, that's just as bad as having sex. So it was like, you know, so yeah, putting it in context. But still, the thing is, it's like, you know, oh, well, in my head, being unfaithful to my wife, but it's literally, it's physically just staying when every fiber of your being is screaming out to Gah! If you feel there is a time where physically you're unsafe, then by all means keep distance until you're both in a calmer space. But then physically making sure that you come back together and you're not walking out that door. Don't let anything be a deal breaker. And I know that may be quite radical because, well, what about he's hitting me so many times? Okay, yeah. But for me, I'm talking about just in terms of the relationship, and that it's interesting you bring up about social media. And ironic, this is going to be up online. But for me, I'm not a big proponent of social media and influences in that. If anything, because of course I've shared about my faith, for me, my influencer is always the Lord Jesus Christ. He's my main influencer. He's the rock upon which I build my foundation, upon which I build my family, future generations of our family. But take it with a grain of salt. If anything's going on with your marriage and you can't talk with your husband or your wife, who are the people that are closest to you, people that you trust can give wise counsel? There's nothing wrong with always first pray. Pray, Father, you know, this is what's happening in our marriage at the moment. I really need your help. Please, who can I go to? Who can I talk to? And think about the people that are closest to you, that you trust there, that you will allow to speak into your life. Speak to them and get wise counsel too. And if need be, nothing wrong. I don't see anything wrong with counsellors. Counselling, nothing wrong with counselling. Nothing wrong with counselling at all. So those are just some things for us. Yeah.
Man, good advice also. Man, appreciate that. And thank you for your honesty as well, Brian. Appreciate that also. Oh, man, because I guess we can keep talking on about relationships and so forth, but because your character also, just you are larger than life, and your emceeing skills and the master of ceremonies. Also, because you're well renowned. People are after you left, right and centre. Also, because obviously you got the, on broadcasting, but the emceeing. Tell us about the emceeing. How did that come something that's quite prominent in your life right now?
It's started going on about 30 years now. Yeah. So maybe you were one. Or, yeah. Jeez. Or mum and dad were going on their first date. I don't know. But so around 30 years, 30 years ago, I don't really remember, but if I recall rightly, I was at a function. The MC didn't turn up, and somebody goes, "Brian, you got a big mouth." Who was that? I can't remember. And so that's where like my MCing career started. I've never had a website. I've never advertised my services or anything. But God has just opened doors left, right, and centre to be able to MC again over the last 3 decades. And I'm to be honest, I'm still amazed that people actually pay me to do something that I really enjoy doing. But again, I always see it as another form of service. If somebody engages me to host any event in that, it's just like the work ethic that I apply to my job, my day job. I apply it to emceeing, where I get as much information as I can. I try, put the program, get meetings with people before the event and do all those things that I can as humanly possible as I can within my own ability. And then before the event, I pray, and then bang, just walk it out. I always invite Father God, Lord Jesus, Holy Spirit, pray before every single event. It doesn't matter whether it's maybe a small community event or one, man, where you get like in the hundreds or thousands and that. It's always the same, always have the same approach, but I always see it as service. It's another form of service, and it's something I love to do. Love to do it.
Obviously, you love to do it, but you're very gifted in it. Obviously, you're a very good communicator, and obviously, your humour as well. And so, was there ever? I want to ask you: was there ever? Which one was your favourite of all time? Like you kind of went there. Oh, this is going to be awesome. I love this event, and it was just like you just killed it every time. What was the number one place?
No, I can't put my finger on it because I've literally done hundreds. And this is when I say MC, it's also including acting work, facilitating and stuff like that. But if I can point to maybe one just recently, just the other week I was blessed to host a fundraising or MC a fundraising event for St. Paul's College Choir. So they're going to the Cadenza Choral Festival down in Rotorua, the 24th or 25th, and so I was asked by a super couple, Bex and Naines from Saints Up Performing Arts Academy, and that awesome job, and they asked me to come along, and man, it was so much fun. It's such a great night. It's interesting how you say, man, the best, but for me, it's moments. Like there'll be moments where you feel maybe not the best description, where you feel like you literally have the crowd in your hand, and wherever you go, they just follow, and but being in front of a live audience, I love it because you get an instant reaction. My wife tells me a lot, man, maybe sometimes I'll be saying a joke and it'll be, and then I say something which I think is funny, and and it's literally, it's like that, and I'm the only one laughing, and it's like, maybe it's my own, like, self-sabotaging, low self-esteem, ego thing coming into play, and I was like, I think it's funny, but then I just move on. Like I said, one voice break at a time, so I just move on in there. But yeah, again, it's just the buzz, and there's nothing like it. The adrenaline rush of being in front of a live audience, and I always it's like that fight or flight where I may be so nervous, but your back's against the wall, and it's like But the one that's the most memorable for all the worst reasons was, and I'm not going to get into too much detail. So back in 2013 was my first trip to Samoa, and I got asked to do Miss Samoa pageant over in Samoa, and it was awesome. It was my first time, and so I was asked to go by the lovely Uralema Mai, Te Vāmata Whai, and I was, oh man, so excited. So I prepared my whawhailoa inga, everything like I usually do. And then for some reason when we went over, because I had never been to my dad's village, Vaiete, and so I was so desperate to go, but time wouldn't allow. And so what I did was like, oh man, I don't know if I'll ever get a chance. It's my first time in Sa. So I went and caught the bus from Apia all the way out to the Kwa, to Vaiete. Yeah. And so it was just like you see on the Orator and that, the colourful bus, some old woman is sitting on my leg, and I'm just sitting there, oh, wow, the real Samoa, I love it. I go to stand up and I can't feel my left leg. Had to wait for 10 minutes for me just to get off the bus. I didn't even know where my family lived. All I knew was Vaiete. And so the bus driver dropped me off in Vaiete. And then I was just like, okay, Lord, you got to help me here because I don't know where I'm going. I saw this brick house. I went up and I knocked on the door, and the girl answers the phone, the door, and yeah, hello. And I said, olo ingoa maa, o waula akeli makua salatelu. She started crying. I knocked on the door of my grandfather's house.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was amazing. And so I spent maybe the night there. And so I go back to the next day to NUS where the event was being held. But I had done my prep. I'm all good. So, and even though I was getting the looks of, I'm going to peel off your left toe skin or whatever, I was like, oh, okay, I'll be okay. I know I can do it. And so imagine this, NUS, the big whale there, it's packed to the brim. And the sa'o of our family is there. My auntie is there, representing the family, and that it's being broadcast live across Channel 1 and 2 in Samoa. So I do my usual, play my, in the Stone theme song, da-da-da, Earth, Wind and Fire. I come up to the front, and then and then I say, okay, send to yourself, because I go, nothing. Oh, it's the first time in my whole career as an MC, I was blank, bro. Praise the Lord, it was the one time where I actually printed off my whawhailoa inga, because usually I like to, you know, just memorize and just go. But then it's like, oh, and then I read it, The thing about MCing, the most important part, is the start and the end. If either of those two, well, the start more than anything, because like they're saying, you only get one chance to make a good first impression. The impression I got was I can imagine my mum again, like if she was there. Oh, but it was Michael Jackson bad. So I was like, oh, bro. And so after the the event finished, and then oh my gosh. I went up to my uncle and auntie, and it was like those ones, like they were trying to not be there, even though they were there physically. And my uncle, the soul of our family, like went there. Hey, this is my nephew. Like he couldn't even look me in the eye, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then when I was talking to some of the judges after, they were going, man, I loved how you pretended to forget your whawhailoa inga, and I started laughing. Oh, yeah. And then when I turned around, the streams of the rivers of Babylon where we sat down. And I was like, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It was bad. It was so bad. And I remember even months later, or a year or two later, one of my cousins from the States, hey, I saw you on the massage. It was DVD. So I could relive the trauma over and over again.
Timeless.
Yeah, bro, timeless indeed. But, you know, the one lesson which I took away, which has always kept me in good stead, out of all that, what I learnt was this. When you do the work first and then the family. Do your work first and then the family. Doesn't matter. So after that, I came back. I was quite traumatized. I turned down maybe gigs, offers for about a few months. That's how traumatized I was. And then one day I just thought, man, you know, I got offered to do this little community event out in Manurewa. I'd never been so nervous in my whole life. And then I went out. There was maybe about 30, 40 people there. I was so nervous. You would have been able to see my knees shaking under my whaikanga. And then when I started, and bang, it all just came back, and I was like, you know, it was just like, yeah, just like normal. But again, it was a very important lesson which I've never forgotten, and I've always, even though there have been a few times where I've been tempted because a particular event, family that I haven't seen for a while, but no, always do the job you've been tasked with, that you've been paid to do. Do that, do it well, and then focus on the family. So, yeah.
Jeez. So you say it was quite bad, Brian?
Oh, I just told you Michael Jackson bad, bro.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love that you said, because some people often think when they see you, Brian, oh man, how do you do that? How does he come up with all these jokes? And he's just so charismatic, and it's just amazing what he does, and so skillful. And some people always often look at that. They look at, oh man, you can never do anything wrong. But I'm glad you kind of shared it, because there are moments where, man, I bum out. I didn't do a good job.
Oh, bro, nerves are real. People see what they see, and praise the Lord for the gifts that He's given me, which allow me to operate in these spaces. But to me, it's like the analogy I always use: the duck. The duck on the surface is serene and calm, but when you look under the waterline. Hey, paddling hard out, but above the.
That's cool.
But again, you just look at it as service. It's always tautua, and just like the proverb, oleala tautua. Oh, sorry, oleala pule tautua. So,
Man,
as a master MC, what advice can you give to say someone that needs to give a MC a 21st or MC when they don't want to do it, but they've been asked to do it?
Sure. The first thing I would always say, and I've been asked this time and time again, you have to be confident in just being yourself. You get up on the stage and you're trying to be somebody that you're not, people will see right through it. Be confident in being yourself. The other big thing, if you MCing, preparation, and the last one, more preparation. You prep as much as you can, get as much information, get as much structure. In the 30 years I've been doing MCing, maybe one, I could count on my hands where something hasn't hasn't gone or a change to the program in there. But if you have the main structure of a program ready in that, and that's ingrained, and you're confident with that, if anything comes up on the day, then it's about being flexible, being able to pivot and adapt, but also remaining calm. A lot of times when things are happening on the stage, I'm always side of stage, and I'm talking to somebody's just come and thing on my ear. The next person, they're not here. It's going to be thing instead. Bang, I got to focus in. Oh yeah, cool, bang, and you go. But again, you prep as much as you can. Be yourself and try and have fun. Yeah, you always got to try and have fun. I like to believe that. I bring a sense of fun to everything that I do, but it's also being able to read the crowd. If the moment allows, you can always share a personal anecdote that might relate to something or a speaker that has just gone. I'm never shy to pull somebody up from the front to do a impromptu talanoa, or that's why I always pray, because I invite God and Holy Spirit. I always ask Holy Spirit, lead me, and if I'll get a prompting, I don't question, I just go with it, and 9 times out of 10 it was the right time. It was the right moment in there. Experience does play a big part, but again, it's what goes on before the day. It's like the sporting analogy. Games are won on the training paddock. Mm-hmm. You put in the hard work beforehand, so that train hard, play easy, sort of thing. Preparation, attention to detail, and doing the best that you can, and then be yourself.
I like what you said, because what does it mean now, Brian? Because people say, obviously you said be yourself, and sometimes it's just hard to be yourself, to be authentic. You hear it all the time, be yourself, be authentic, and in this day and age, sometimes it can be very hard. And what do you think that's the case for even for our men, but also our Pasifika and Māori?
I think a lot of it has to do with how we maybe view ourselves, and how this unworthiness, how we see ourselves. It's a very interesting sketch comes to mind, and it was like a stick figure drawing of someone looking in the mirror. What's that eating disorder where you're never hungry, but you're anorexia. Yeah. And so it was a picture of a person where it was a straight line, or a curved inward line, but when they were looking in the mirror, the curve was outward, as if. So the way that they saw themselves versus the way that other people see themselves, you know what I mean? So in terms of being authentic, again, coming down to the person that you're at home is the person that you are at work, that the public sees as well, not maybe Jekyll and Hyde in there. And this is something which my kids have rightly said is an issue with me over the years, in that, okay, why can't you apply the same grace, the same love to people out in the public, but you can't even apply that here in your own home? And they've challenged me on that a number of times, and to me, okay, I have to really take a look at myself, and then it's that whole thing of revisiting my upbringing and how I was raised, and dealing with issues of rejection, dealing with issues of bitterness, hurt, unforgiveness, all those feelings, and just being able to talk it out, and walk it out. But again, just in terms of social media, you've got to be very, very careful with what you, especially with our kids. So at the moment, we don't have Wi-Fi at our house. So maybe last year or the year before, my wife was saying, man, you guys are just on your phones too much. And so she just went and cut the phone off. Like the internet and that. Yeah, these coasty women, the women from the East Coast, they don't muck around. One day, the kids are, and then next minute is like the ad day, hey, what happened to the Wi-Fi? So that's, and we still don't have Wi-Fi at our house. And so a lot of times when I have to do work in my data is slow, I got to drive into work and prep at work. So yeah, but I understand it, and especially for our children. I make this joke sometimes at gigs, but YouTube Kids is not actually a very good babysitter. I'll drop this bar. Hey, you think about it. The number of times like kids and they're just scrolling. And especially when they're so young and impressionable and their brains are still developing. Gone are the days like in our generation growing up before social media, people outside playing, just interacting, engaging, but now you just see kids, their whole world is focused around a monitor, around a screen. That's where they get pretty much all their information. That's how they engage with the world. That's the mirror through which they see themselves. And for me, it's not, it can be very, very dangerous where your whole identity is based on what you're watching on a screen, maybe a total stranger, but yet they have so much influence and impact on your lives, more so than even your own family. That's dangerous.
Yeah, you're right. And what you said in terms of, when you're kind of busy, and I'm guilty of that as well. I went back in the past, oh man, yeah, just grab this, take the iPad, and because I'm doing work and all that kind of stuff. And then you're right in terms of the social media, especially social media. But you're finding out that it's actually especially sociable, but it's just antisocial. You have people in the smoker room, people in the lunch room, people in families. If you're eating and having dinner, a lot of them are just on their phones, and people are just texting each other, and they're just sitting right next to you, just across the room. It's like, it's quite dangerous. And so, in terms of social media, in terms of broadcasting as well, also, what do you see? What do you see in terms of the future, in terms of how social media and this new technology and so forth, and AI, all that kind of stuff? How do you see the world of broadcasting changing?
And it's interesting. I've only been in the industry about 9 years, but just the advancements in technology, AI. Who would have thought of AI? All those years ago. But I suppose for me, I always see everything as a tool. It's a tool which can either be used for good or evil, but it's always in the mind of the person that actually uses the technology and that. So we're already seeing it now. If you look at what happened just recently with TVNZ and how TV3 News went off air in terms of our major broadcasters, funding cuts, job cuts across the board, but the technology is such now where people it's just more and more everything online because it's just so accessible, and that you think, what was life? Can you even imagine what life was like before YouTube, before Instagram, before Facebook, X, and all these other things? And of course, again, just talk with AI, again, a tool. I see it as a tool. It all depends on the person that uses it and what their intentions, what their motives are behind using the technology and that. But as a broadcaster, it's a responsibility I never take lightly, that every time when I push that button, there are people that are allowing me into their spaces. So for me, whatever I'm sharing, I always like to believe that it is of value in terms of engagement, in terms of education, in terms of cultural capacity, and providing a platform to share and highlight our various specific communities and that. But that's just me. I'm just one person, but one that's had the privilege of, again, sharing stories, inspirational stories the world over amongst our Pasifika. It's something I never tire of, and I love it. I love it to death. But sadly, and here's maybe a learning for all the workaholics out there, balance. Sadly, there have been a number of times where I've sacrificed for work, and the sacrifice being time with my family. So when I first started, I was doing a Pacific breakfast back then. This was when I first started in 2015, and back then it was 6 to 10. So out of the 9 years that I've been working at 531, I've been the producer, the person that sources the interviews, the content, and then doing the technical stuff. So it's the 3-in-1. So out of the 9 years I've been there, I've been doing that for 7 years, day in, day out, week after week, month after month, year after year. And it can be very, very taxing. But it's never for the audience. They don't care. Let's be honest. All I know is, hey, man, that looks really cool. So that's what, again, it's putting the content out there that will hopefully invite them to take a deeper dive themselves. And thankfully, a lot of times through the engagement that we see online and through podcasts, our own podcasts, and it's good to get that type of traction. But yeah, there's always a price to pay. Always a price to pay. And as I'm getting older in this role, it's like I don't know how much longer I can do it. The why has always been the same, but then it's you get to a stage where it's like maybe it's time to pass the baton onto someone else and just leave it in a good space that when I leave, I'll just add to the legacy of those that have come before me and walk out with my head held high, and again leaving with a good name and representing my parents, my family, my village well.
That's mean. I love that you highlighted how the social media, the technology is just a tool. It's not bad. It's not good. It's how it's used and how the person behind the screen or whatever, how they're using it. It can be helpful or can be dangerous. Where do you see any major benefits in the future with just technology in general? Like, do you see any ways in which it can really benefit the kids, or how it can be used to benefit kids or even just us in general?
I'm seeing that a lot through the resources available. If I'm looking just specifically at the work that I do at 531 PI, back when I was growing up, 70s or 80s, right, we didn't have the resources available to us today to allow us to learn more about our culture. And sadly, back then, as with a lot of first generation New Zealanders, it's a thing from the parents when you ask, I want to learn more, but they say like, what's the use, you know, you're going to get a job from that. But yet fast forward how many years later, and culture is such a big thing for us that the importance now years later. So I see that in the way of resources available if we're looking at, for a Pacific lens. Sadly, many of our languages, many of the Pacific languages are endangered. Iwi endangered. I'm thinking about Tokelau, maybe Niue, Cook Islands, to name a few, Kiribati maybe, and I think Tuvalu. So having resources available which are easily accessible, but that's another thing, technology, just making things more accessible. You look at Uber. Hey, Uber, 1 o'clock in the morning, everything's shut, but oh man, Uber. Maybe not good for your waistline, but yeah. So making life easier, but then if it's making life easier and it frees up time, because that's what, for me, the way I see it frees up time. But then the question is, what are you going to do with the time that has been added to you?
Love that.
Wow, it's so true. I like what you said, but also in terms of, obviously sometimes we kind of look at the cons of social media, and obviously there's a lot of pros to social media as well. And then you look at some of the cons, and some of our young people, our young rangatahi, our young men more so, and there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression around that. But I just wanted to ask you as well, Brian, has there been instances, because when I'm talking with you, just a lot of humour, happiness, and a lot of joy. But I can guarantee there would have been some times, instances where there was some hardship in your life, and maybe you can, I don't know, up to you, if you want to share some of those moments where it was quite challenging, where you're not the laughing Brian.
Oh, no. Like, here's something that's funny that's not funny to me. People always comment about, man, you're so funny. You go to my house, bro, I'll crack a joke and my kids are still just like, and it's like, so I actually have to leave my house to get attention from strangers, as opposed to going to my house and, I'll crack a joke and nobody's laughing, but then maybe my son Noah or Caleb will do so. And it's like, did you just hear the joke I shared? Because I thought that was pretty. Or I'll come back from a gig and I'm trying to share, and then my daughter Indigo, we got this thing where she does the, all glory to God, Dad? All glory to God, And I was like, who can I share this one? I just go in the closet and like, Father, did you see what I was doing for you, for the kingdom? Hey, what was the question?
No, I'm just saying some hardships, some challenging times.
I'll tell you. So the biggest one for me was when I lost my dad. 2009, the 14th of November. I'll never forget it. I love my dad so much. It's the thing about, You know, people, you can be the laughing one minute, but man, when I start talking about my dad, I loved him so much, and he was so very inspirational. He had such a great impact on my life. And you're thinking, I like to share this from time to time when I'm at gigs and that, about a man who came from the backwaters of Samoa, Vaiete Sāwhaka, right? His education did not exceed standard 4. He didn't even, that's how far his education, yet he came to New Zealand. He held down how many jobs? He bought a brand new house at 18 Conclusion Street, Ascot Park, raised 4 boys, especially after mum and dad separated in 88, and that's the reason why I actually came to Auckland, because my dad wanted to be closer to his other siblings. Down in Wellington there was nobody, so when mum and dad separated, he thought, okay, we'll take the kids up. But that was the hardest thing for me. When my dad died, before my dad died, because my wife, her parents had passed a number of years before, and when dad was sick in hospital, I thought, oh yeah, he's going to recover again. And Berta was always saying to me, go make time, because, you know, and I was like, no, because dad's going to live forever, until he didn't. One of the things I remember, the week before he died, and the week before we took him home for his final transition, his final graduation, we spent about a good 2-3 hours, and he was telling me things at the age of 40 that I had never known my whole life. He was just sharing things, and I was crying, and I was just saying to him, Dad, why did it take you so long to share these beautiful stories? And I think a lot of times, maybe it's the generation or that they just didn't want to bother us with things like that, and just focusing on putting a roof over your head and food on the table. But advice for our dads, you know, don't be scared to be vulnerable with your kids. You hear this term a lot, toxic masculinity. You can go online, you can see guys like Andrew Tate, you can see all these things where you're saying like, this is the way a man is. But to me, when I read the word, it's like it says, you know, when I'm weak, I'm strong, you know. And it's, my strength is not in and of myself, but my strength and my source is God Most High, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Nisi, Jehovah Rapha. So that was really hard. My daughter made a tribute video after he died. I watched that religiously every day for about maybe 3-4 years. Wow. Every single day. And every time I watched it, it was like I was reliving him dying again. It got so ridiculous that times where my wife's in the bedroom and she can hear me crying, and you should be just calling her, hey, is everything okay? And then one of the kids just walking past taps me on the shoulder. Oh, he's watching the video again. And she just goes, okay. That's how ridiculous it was. And so for the longest time, I didn't have closure. They say that when someone really close to you passes, that you have a dream of them within the year. Everybody except me had a dream of Dad. All my kids, my wife, my brothers. I don't know about my brothers, but all my kids and my wife. And so fast forward about 3-4 years later, one night I had a dream, and in my dream, my dad, he appeared to me. It was black, and then turned around, and I could see this light. It's like Bruce Leroy, you know. And the last dragon. It was like Bruce Leroy wearing his polo shirt that he always wears at home, and his earlobe that he always used to wear. So I turned around and just like, you know, like Bruce Leroy, and there was the glow around him. I ran up and I was hugging, and I was crying on his shoulder. And you know, in his own way, he just said to me, "Aoe ke papore au. Don't worry about me. Me kaua. Kausi puta makamaiki." And then I cried, and then after that, I woke up. And I never watched that video since, maybe once, twice. I had closure, you know, so it was a very hard time. The other big one for us was we lost our house, the house that my dad paid for, but because I'm smart and I know everything and I don't need anybody's help, we lost the house because of stupid decisions that I made, and I let my pride. It's a good one for the brothers tuning in. Pride. Because what does the word say? Pride goes before a fall. And there was a big fall. So what happened, we got into some trouble with our mortgage. Check this out. At the time, our mortgage was only $120,000 remaining. I know, but it gets worse. And our repayments a month was about $1,200. How do you get into trouble with a mortgage? It's only $1,200 a month. I know, but we found a way. We found a way, and so we went through this whole process. It started when we wanted to do reno on our house. So we had a 3-beddy at the time, but with me, Berta, and the number of kids, and so we got architectural plans and all that to extend it to a 6-beddy with 2 bathrooms and that. And so from about 2003 to about 2017, all we had was the framing. This is from 2003 when we got the plans approved to about 2017, 2018. So there was a house, we had the main dwelling, but the extension, it got to the stage where the only thing was the roof, but we had holes in the flooring and stuff like that. That's how bad it was. It got so bad that at one stage we had to build a makeshift shower, and we were showering, me, my wife, our kids, outside during winter. That's how bad it got. But as bad as it got, because I know everything, I didn't ask for anybody's help. I just wanted, no. It's even too humiliating. When I finally got to the point where I needed help, it was on the day of the mortgagee auction. Fair to say that it was a bit too late then. And so I sought help, but it was too late, nothing you could do. And so we lost the house. And what happened was, not thankfully, but the man that bought the house, we still rent our house. So that's, I know, it makes it even worse. So the house that I lost, which was a gift from my dad to me and my brothers and my mum, we lost, and we're still living there. So hopefully, please learn something from that. Anybody watching and listening, I don't mind sharing, because hopefully if somebody can learn from it, and once again, it's about humbling yourself, especially as a dad, husband, the leader of your house. Humble yourself. If you start getting into a spot of bother, don't do the ostrich. Don't bury your head under the neck. Don't bury your head under the sand. Go find help while it is still available, because when it's too late, there was another form of trauma I had to live with. And even around the time we were losing the house, we were in debt up to our eyeballs. And so we made the difficult decision where Berta, my wife, and we lived apart. She found a job down in Gisborne where her family is from, so it's good. She was close to our oldest boys and her siblings, but we lived apart for about 18 months just to pay back the debt that we had at the time. And so those are just some of the stories. I can go back. We were living in Pakiranga many moons ago. We got into debt, and our van got repossessed. At the time, we were working at Sky TV. If you know Sky TV, up in, where is it? We were living in Pakiranga, but it's in Mount Wellington. Mount Wellington. So my pregnant wife of about 3-4 months, when we were working at Sky TV, we were walking from Pakiranga all the way to our job at Sky TV for a number of months. These are just some of the things that people will never see. They'll always see hey, my name's Brian Sagala and da-da-da-da-da. But a lot of the resilience, a lot of the strength, and that is born out of a lot of trauma, a lot of dysfunction. But out of that, what the enemy meant for evil, God turns for good. And so as bad as those times were, we came out stronger out the other end. And again, it strengthened our marriage and our love for each other. And one of the things, we're in a good place now where we're able to, we can bless people, not with cars yet, but the other day we were eating at Mangere Bridge, and I saw 3 matua eat. They came in, and the mama, she went up to order the food while the 2 papas just staying there. But the mama was, and I just felt the Lord say, "Hey, go buy their breakfast," and that. So we were just eating, and then just when she finished her order, I sort of did a slight push her to one side, and I said, "Oh, I'll pay for it," and she just went, and then she went back, and I could hear her talking, and then just walk out, and then, "Oh, thank you," and it's like, no worries, because we love to bless. And also, when we were in trouble, if there were people that were there to help me at that time. And so now being in a position where if it's in my power and I can, and I feel that the Lord is prompting me, I'll do it. I'll do it without hesitation.
Man.
And I love how your faith really plays into every aspect of your life. It really, you spoke a little bit about being the same person at home as you are at work, as you are. I mean, with the people you interview, and it seems like you must get a fair share of different kinds of people coming in. You interview all different people who have different walks of life. What's the current state of men out there right now? What's your take on it? Do men seem like they're in control and they're really making the moves that they should be, or do you feel like there's a bit of a dip?
Man, that's such a good question, and I'll be honest, I don't know the answer to that. A lot of the times when I'm interviewing men, it's in the capacity of what their work may be, and a lot of times it may be working with youth and that, but not many times where it's as a guest talking about their personal life and that. Maybe one exception or something that happened a number of years ago, and hopefully Alf won't mind. Well, it went public, so he won't mind me sharing this. So 27, was it the Rugby League World Cup? When was the last one? Back in, was it 2017 here in New Zealand?
2019.
20, oh, okay, yeah. And so during that time, there was an incident that happened where Al Goody, he was DJing at Mount Smart, and it was a game between Australia and Tonga when the whole MMT thing blew up. And what happened was he was DJing and playing the music, and then the fans, you know, MMT fans, man, when, oh, bro, nobody marfunus like MMT fans, eh? Oh, one nah. Yeah. And so he was playing, but then he overheard one of the guys from NRL talking about something, I paraphrased, like, oh, dance, monkey, dance. And then out of that, the whole thing changed for him, his whole demeanour. But through the post that he shared, it just blew up, and good on NRL, where they came back to him and they wanted to talk about what had happened and do right by him. But the general state of men, I can't really comment on that with any real authority in my own circles. But then again, the circles in my own personal life, we're talking about guys in our 50s and that. But I think the word that comes up a lot for me, maybe resilience. I hear this thing a lot about the lack of resilience with our younger generation these days, where things maybe for our first generation a bit more able to handle the tough times versus today, where it's like people can just be set off at the most simplest, you know, maybe the slightest infringements, and yet it can, you know, sort of thing. Maybe resilience, but I think generation to generation, if we're looking through Pacifica lens, a lot of stuff we're dealing with in our generation, you get a lot with kids, you know, for the men these days, in terms of the relationships or lack of relationships with their with the parents, the self-worth, their identity, how they see themselves. And even though we have many more resources available to us today, sadly those things are still happening. And I believe the reason being is that in terms of our families being eroded, you know, relationships of families being eroded, this institution of the families being attacked on the daily, because you have strong families, you've got strong communities. I believe that wholeheartedly. And so for our dads and our young men, just be comfortable being yourself. One thing I say to my youngest girl, she's sassy to the max. Like, she knows she can get away with anything. If she watches, she'll be going, that's right. This is, you know, like I'm lying in bed. Dad, I need $10. Got to go buy something at the shop. And I go, no, Summer, no. And she's walking out the door with my debit card. And it's like, it's a good thing your mum said I can't hit you because she's going to take me to the police. But I tell you, man, in my head right now, you're getting it. She has me wrapped around her finger. But one thing I said to her, and maybe she is that don't be in a hurry to grow up. So many people, so many young ones, in such a hurry to grow up. Enjoy being a teenager. You got the rest of your life ahead of you, bro. It's funny, you're in such a rush to grow up, but then when you get into the real world, it's like, oh my, yeah. There's this thing, I'm not going to say the words, but, you know, shut the, but tuck me in. You guys said that one? Something along the lines of like, you know, kids, they want their cake and eat it. Where it's like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do whatever I want, but I'm still going to come home. I'm just going to eat your food. I'm still going to, you know, let you do my washing and stuff. And then it's like, oh, okay then. But again, don't be in a hurry to grow up. Don't be in such a hurry. I think one of the things for me, because being the eldest, and I was working from the age of 16, so my first job out of Aotea College was working at an insurance company in Wellington at the time, State or Sun Alliance Insurance. So I'd be catching the bus around 6-ish, get to town, and then walking and getting to job before 8, and you know, just doing that. But out of that, what I loved, and this is what I love about community of El Pacifica. When I go catch the bus driver is Mr. Ta'ape, one of our fathers, rest in peace, from Waihemo, Efakasa. I give him my bus fare, and I'm walking away. Excuse me, your change. And I was like, what? And he gives it to me, but he doesn't make anything big of it because there's other people on the bus. When I catch the train, my late uncle, Afua Alipa Elisara, is the conductor. And back in those days where you had not these cards, but you had the tickets and that, and he'd come and he'd you know, click it, but he's clicking ear. And he go, thank you. And then when I get to the train station, I get off the train and I'm walking, I hear some woman calling out, Ma! Ma! And I turn around and it's Malama Famuina, one of the ladies from church. And that's what I mean. Oh yeah, and this just gives me chips and that. What I love about this, it really is a village that raises children. All these people, either my family or people from my church, you know, they look out for each other, and that is one picture, one example of just how me being raised by that generation. And now it's my responsibility to be the one that follows that legacy and nurtures the next generation. But the other thing for my job, okay, so, man, you know, it's my first job out of Porirua. All I know is Porirua. And I'm talking with people and they go, oh, hey, man, we just, you know, my first, I love it, you know. And then one day, a lady's talking to me with chatting away. Goes, where are you from? And I go, oh, I'm from Porirua. And her face just dropped, just like this. Pause, and I'll never forget what she said. I wouldn't even walk my dog through that place. It was the first time I ever experienced racism, and I didn't really know what racism was. I didn't even know there was a word. I was only 16. Wow. But there was the first encounter I had with someone who saw my home different to what I saw, and it was my first exposure to different perspectives, and again to bigotry, to racism, to stereotypes, and I was just flabbergasted, like, oh my gosh. But now, through the lens of time and that, if I was that same, 16-year-old, oh, sorry. No,
yeah, manifest.
Oh, sorry, manifest. No. Oh, there's something wrong with this mic. This is Mike. Hey. What'd you say? Hey? I'll show you, Porirua.
Whenever I'm
yeah. Yeah. So it's just all these things that sow into your life and that, and so very blessed. Nothing is for nothing, and God can use anything. Like I said, turning evil for good, and using the things which you think, man, are just so insignificant at the time, but yet now in my role as a broadcaster, in my role as an MC, and everyday communicating and that, bringing to bear now, what I find a lot with our, citing my daughter again, she's South Auckland hard, South Auckland hard. No, we went over, for goodness sake, girl from Mangere gets a trip to Tokyo, second day in, I want to go back home.
Oh my God.
It was like 1,700 for your airfare, eh? And it's like, what? But what I like to try and encourage my kids in that, hearty, but there's a world out there don't be scared to go out and explore it and to live your life. Don't be bound again by not just by the stereotypes, but by your environment, and that there's so much more out there, and it's all for the taking. And again, it's something that I'm so very thankful that in my day-to-day role, being able to experience here within the confines of a studio, but then again going out across the airwaves, across the interweb and stuff like that, and just the many wonderful inspirational stories.
That's so cool, man, Brian. And I love what you said, Brian, because I think about our kids, and I think about the younger generation, and you're right. I think sometimes a lot of them want to grow up so fast. Just enjoy, and I say to my son time and time, and my daughter, just enjoy being young. Enjoying being young, because you're only young once, and I know, because I used to do the same thing. I can't wait to get older. I look at my older cousins. I can't wait to get older, and then when you enter into the world of real life, real living, you think, oh my gosh, I wish I was younger again. Yeah. But just enjoy it. Enjoy your youth. Enjoy being just being young. And I totally agree with what you're saying. But also in terms of our men, the resilience, and what Brad was just asked you in terms of where are our men, and also when you said about the community. Our community, our village as a village, but also, do you see that in this day and age now? Is it the same as how we kind of grew up in the 80s, the village? But are you seeing the same thing that has been replicated back in those days to now? Or was it totally a new ball game?
I see it as going to another level in terms of community engagement and the growing influence of Pasifika in New Zealand. If we're looking at New Zealand alone, you got to take into account growing up in the 70s and 80s, we were like the minority at school. And this is what I'm also thankful for, that when I was growing up, I played and interacted alongside many pālangi, tangata whenua, and so that actually helped me in later life, where I'm going into places and that's talking with CEOs and all these things. But to me, it's like, well, I grew up around, all different types of people. So it's not that I'm not intimidated, not that I have to be, but for me, it's like I'm used to that. It was part of my upbringing versus now where it's like, hey, 685, it's like, oh, okay then. But yeah, I do see that a lot through many organisations, the growing numbers of Pasifika, the bigger communities these days. And so with that, you are seeing a lot more of our voice being heard, more of our stories being amplified. 531, we just celebrated last week or the week before our 31st birthday. If you look at things like Tangata Pasifika, you look at CocoNet online. So these are just some of the platforms, but also out in our communities, the number of Pacific-led organisations that are doing so many great things around the country, around again, all our different communities, and sowing and impacting and our growing influence. Something before, when Alberto was Minister for Pacific Peoples, oh man, I forgot what the figure was, but something billion that Pasifika contributed to the New Zealand economy. I'm going to say eight. I think around 8 billion a year that Pasifika contribute to the New Zealand economy. So in that regards as well, not just in terms of influence, our prominence, you're seeing us on screen, on the field as always, and that, but also in terms of our growing economic power. You look at businesses like Pasifika Business Trust and how many Pacific business owners, I mean, you look at what you're doing here, one of the many initiatives that are sowing into our local community, Pacific-led. So, in that regards, of course, just our growing impact, our growing influence, and what we're doing, but I think still uniquely as Tangata Ole Moana, because we're unique. We can do what we can do. I remember a story, and forgive me, Lauli and Saviatama, but I heard a story once, like Iceman and Ronnie Clyde. Somebody was telling me, they were at a bus stop once, and somebody fell down like a pālangi or something like that, and and these. I don't know what it is about when, for Islanders and we see other people getting hurt, as we're laughing because it's like, oh, it's not us, but it's you. So, hey, sucks to be you. Maybe that's why we laugh. It's like, why are you laughing?
Maybe the trauma.
Why are you laughing? You know, so, oh man, yeah.
It's hard case.
Oh man, Brian. Oh man, Brian! I tell you what, Brian, it's been an absolute pleasure because it is. People know you as obviously the MC and the broadcaster, but you're more than just that. And so I just want to touch on the Queen's Medal of Service because not too many people get that. No? So you got to be in a position where you've done a lot of stuff, but more so real positive and real good stuff. Tell us how you, the feeling of receiving being the recipient, but also just the hard work behind it.
So, from what I understand now, there's a process whereby you have to be nominated. So somebody has to nominate you. So thank you to the person that nominated. Thank you. And then after that, you are rung a few months before, and they let you know, Queen, you're up for a Queen's Service Medal, and then you get the option to either accept or decline. So for me, I was actually declining. And so when I shared it with my wife, she's so gracious and so loving. And you know what? She looked me in the eyes, and I'll never forget it. Don't be stupid. You stupid idiot. What are you doing, you stupid idiot? And I just went, wow, I feel that here, just like mum again. And so I was like, but she said, don't be dumb. It's never about you. And it's like, boom, the mic dropped there. Yeah. So when I went up to receive the medal and that, in my mind's eye, it's like the cloud of witnesses. I saw my grandpa. I saw my dad. I saw my aunties and my uncles, all my family that have passed on. I saw all my friends growing up in Ascot. I saw all my church family over the years, all the people that I worked with. So when I stood up, what I say is that I stood as an individual receiving an award on behalf of everybody that sowed into my life. So it was a special feeling. But again, it wasn't just me. And I've heard this time and time again because I've interviewed a number of Queen's Service Medal, United and all this stuff, and it's the same. I never do this for the accolades or whatever, but it's only right that I accept it on behalf of those that have sown into my life. But here's the thing, when you know that you can be brought back down to earth straight away. So at home the roster's not there anymore. We've got dishes roster. Yeah. So I brought a brand new aloha. I had on my new iwhaikanga and all this. I had new undies on and everything and that. And I went and I got home with my wife and that, and I was wearing my medal. And I was like, oh guys, yeah. And then somebody turns around, oh Dad, you're on dishes. With my brand new undies, my brand new aloha, and my brand new iwhaikanga and my medal, I was doing the dishes at home. And you know what I was saying to myself? I was saying to myself, like, oh, but I just want to Queen's Service medal. Why am I doing the dishes? I just want a Queen's Service medal. And I'm looking at my kids, and they're just watching the TV.
Oh my God.
I didn't even come home, to a clean food all over the table, rubbish on the floor. So after I did the dishes, I took the rubbish and I cleaned up the sitting room and the kitchen. My son's playing the game and I lift up his legs and I pick up the rubbish.
That's why you get the service.
Oh my God.
The service medal.
That's why you are awarded us.
No, and after that, I haven't worn it since. There was the one time I wore it. Because every time I look at it, or I'm reminded of doing the dishes.
Oh my God.
So praise the Lord. There's nothing like kids just to bring you back down to earth.
I love that, bro.
And you know what?
Sad, man.
Whatever smidgen of ego that day, it was quickly assassinated by my children. It was quickly decimated, annihilated by my children.
Is it quite big, Brian? Or just...
Oh no! It's like I have to have a look at it. I can't remember what it
It's been that long. Whatever I get up, it's been that long.
When I get home, I'll go inside the my walk-in wardrobe and just check up on the third shelf and then. Oh my gosh! Because you know what, I've had a few awards over the years. This is funny. So when I was working at DHL Express in 2010, I won the national salesperson for the whole of New Zealand. What? 2010.
Oh, wow.
I know, but this is God. This is God again. And I'll give all glory to God. There was a lovely Taiwanese sister by the name of Jenny, and every month they release our results. So I was in the telesales team. We receive our results every month on revenue and stuff like that. Every month, Jenny, 11, 12 months in a row. So when it came, we had our conference over in Noosa, I think it was that year, and all the sales teams from around Oceania, we go there and that. And so they come to announcing the telesales person of New Zealand, for New Zealand, country salesperson of New Zealand. And I'm sitting there on the same table as Jenny. I'm just getting ready to clap for her. And the winner for this year's Brian Sagala. And I was like, because you know how we love our Palangas today. Isaac Taco!
Sagala.
So they called out my name, and I was like, what? So I found out, even though Jenny was, the month she started was the month outside the qualification period. Oh. So I was always like maybe second or third, and she was, And so when they announced my name, I was like, man, I just laughed. I said, man, Father, this is going to be you. And then it was like with the QSM, I was walking up and I was just thinking about Dad because he'd only passed away the year before. But bro, the trip we got, DHL Express, we went to Phuket. Over in Thailand. And so for 5 days we were at a 6-star hotel. We got $1,000 New Zealand spending money, and at that time it was about maybe 2-3 baht or whatever their currency is to the $1 New Zealand dollar. Every night we went out to a restaurant, like a 6-star restaurant, and then one day we went out to a Thai kickboxing gym, but the killer was like a night before the conference finished, they took us out into the harbour to a private island, and then they had the pedicure, manicure, white sandy beach, and they had white table service set up on the cliffs, and there was about maybe 40 of us sales guys from around the world. We had jet skis and all that, and bro, the water there, how when you usually go to a beach and then you say, oh,
cold.
No, but when you went there, it was just like, hey, room temperature. So just walking into the water, like, oh my life. And I was just laughing the whole time. I was like, man, a kid from Poirua, damn, bro. Like, yeah, bro. So, like, yeah. So I just remember that, but only because it relates to what we're talking about. But yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
So you're not kidding me. You talk about Pacific excellence, bro. You've been doing this. You're one of the pioneers in terms of obviously excellence. You really do that. You do what you say, and I love what that you are. You're integral to your work ethics, all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of people who are watching or listening, there's an understanding, and I think there's a place where we need to. Obviously, work ethics and all that kind of stuff that plays a massive part in terms of who we become as individuals. And, Brian, man, just mad props to you, man. Mad props, because people think, oh, Brian's the guy, the MC, the comedian, all that kind of stuff. He's the broadcaster, but they don't see the hard work and the hard mahi behind the grind and what you do.
Again, it's I can only firstly praise God, but also my mum and dad. I saw them work themselves to the bone growing up, and all I knew, like in these jobs and places and spaces I've been blessed to occupy, if anything, is that I was blessed with the same work ethic as my parents. What I saw them do, when I went to got into that sales job, I had no qualifications whatsoever. I started as what they call a telemarketer. You had to do, our goal was 75 cold calls a day. So every day I had to ring 75 companies to try and, but because I was so used to rejection, like 75 rejections, well, hey, mum's up at about 1,000, 75, I can deal with that. So, yeah, but it's that thing about if you're faithful in the little, I truly believe that. And of course it's the word. If you are faithful in the little, and the word talks about like how what God sees in secret, he rewards openly. And also talking about how your gift will take you before, before kings and that. So I suppose if anything, like the parable of the talents, I've been blessed with maybe one or two gifts, but because I've operated in the gifts that I've been blessed with, God has opened more and more doors over the years. And so, walking your talk, and integrity is a big thing. Do what you say. Do what you say you're going to do. Walk your talk. And again, people don't see the stuff behind and that, but that's all good. That's all good. But God sees. My wife and my children see, either out in the garage working till 2-3 in the morning on something, which will maybe... I remember when I was prepping to interview Fia Me, Mataafa, the first female Prime Minister, and I spent a few days just prepping for that one interview. Wow. But man, nobody can put you down like your own people. Oh, bro. I made the mistake once of reading comments and after the interview. Who is this stupid man asking these questions? And then I was like, damn. And so, after I had my heart ripped out, but then it's like, my wife, she's always there, and she's always that voice of reason saying, well, what? Did they interview her? Did they do the prep? Exactly. And it's like, come on, man, get over it. It's just, it's only one interview, and it's like, oh yeah, just put it all in context. Again, it's like one voice break at a time. There was one voice break, and you just move on.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Awesome. You're right. You're absolutely right. In terms of obviously you're going to get a lot of backlash, a lot of people who comment, and for some reason they might not like you at all. For whatever reason, it's maybe the way you talk or the way you look, or whatever it is. But I like it. And I love that you got the right supports in terms of your wife saying, hey, are they the ones doing it? No, they're not doing it. If they interviewed the Prime Minister of Samoa, no. And so, man, hats off to you, and for the obviously the resilience, and also it's just like what off a duck's back, because you're doing the work, the hard work also. And so, just for me, just one final question also. What does the future hold? Because you've done so much in your lifetime, but what does the future hold in terms of broadcasting or whatever it is, Brian, that you see yourself doing, and also the purpose. Is there anything else that's going to be added to your purpose?
Well, going back to my first job at social welfare, when I first gave my heart to Jesus at the Barry Smith rally, I was going to the toilet one day, of all places, to get inspiration, and the Lord dropped in my spirit a verse which I've held on to over 30 years now from the first time, and it's Galatians 6 verse 9, and let us not be weary in well doing, for in due season you shall reap if we faint not. And so even though that promise was given to me so many years, I'm only starting to see the fruit of that now. And so when I was first given that, I was like, oh, hallelujah, I'm going to leave this job and da-da-da-da. But over the years, I think God has been doing a work in me in terms of capacity, in terms of maturity, and in terms of many different areas of my life, and now seeing fit, okay, I can, trust you with a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. So at this stage, there's no plans to leave PMN. I've always believed that it's a ministry. Again, I said at the beginning, I've never looked at it as a job. I've always looked at it as a ministry, and how I prayed for this job. Only God will take me out of this job. Almost sounded like I was going to do a two-packer. Only God can judge me.
Eyes on me. Glory.
You are appreciated. but yeah, like I said, Papa was the one. He was the one that opened this door, and what door he opens, no man can close, and vice versa. What door he closes. So at this stage, I don't see anything more. It's just continuing just to be faithful and operating. At the stage that I'm at life, I keep things very simple, and maybe that's one final word of encouragement. Keep things simple. it's so easy to allow yourself get thoughts, be riddled by thoughts, anxiety in there. But like the word talks about, let tomorrow take care of itself. Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Just be present in the here and now. And maybe for a lot of people, the anxiety is always, it can be, okay, what's ahead? What's ahead? When you haven't even walked out what's happening today and you're causing yourself undue pressure. But I'm always inspired. So at 531 PI, we have George Motonga. He's our longest serving employee. I love Siosi to death. 29 years. So 531 is 31 years. He's been working there 29 years. Wow. And so he is like the model at the moment for myself. Might be the going straight from 531 to Manukau Memorial Gardens, the cemetery. So from there straight to the cemetery, graduate, and then so I'm not looking, that much further down the track. But even in the work that I've done, been so blessed to do. So many things, and while I'm at it, there have been a number of people that at 531 and Pacific Media Network. So for me, the humility also coming out of my responsibility, not just to our listeners, but to those that have gone before me, that have laid the path, that have laid the foundation. And I think of people like Tofi Lau, Yolandi Chong, who passed last year, and we look at people like Tango Piri, who was a real stalwart in our Samoan community as a broadcaster with our PMN Samoa team. So as much as I may get recognition, that's all well and good. That's awesome. Praise the Lord that I get that. But again, it's the responsibility daily, serving through the gifts, but also being responsible for the mantle that was passed on to me. Eventually, I will leave 531, I will leave PMN, but my hope is when that time comes that I'll leave it in a better place and a better space than when I started. But other than that, just doing life with my beautiful wife and children, living life day to day and that. And again, just keep it simple. Keep it simple.
Oh, Lord, love that, man.
There is also a new song that I'm going to be releasing soon. So
Let's go. What's the song?
It's called It's Still in My Head. It's still in my head. But one day, that's why I sing it every single gig I get. It's just because I know one day someone might pick me up. But yeah, if that's you, 022 366 0955.
Oh, Brian, man. Mate, also, thank you so much. It is obviously Charles and James and Caroline. They would love to be at the table with us.
Why wouldn't they? That's a valid question, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, no, it is.
Okay.
Caroline's in Dunedin.
No, just hey, he thought it was real. Because...
that's what I was going. What kind of a pillow can I make up?
Hey, mandate to man down.
What kind of a pillow can I make up? Oh, man. But also, thank you so much, Brian. Obviously, just little snippets of your life and glimpses of your life. But I keep on saying you're larger than life, and all the best. I wish you nothing but the best. Pray that God continues to bless you in abundance of you and your ainga, your family, but even in the airwaves. And you're given this opportunity, and it is like you said that God takes you and uses your talent to spread you out and to serve and to use you in the midst of kings. And it is your voice. We hear it every morning. Your voice is out there, and in the airwaves, people are listening. But more so that there's a spirit there. Obviously, the Holy Spirit, like you were saying, the Holy Spirit is out in the airways, so to speak. But otherwise, also all the best for 2024, and continue the amazing work that you do. But much love to you also.
Hard. Yeah, appreciate you coming on us. I said this to you off air, but I want to say it to the camera anyway. I went to school with your daughter Indigo. Shout out Indigo. Man, still dance, mean dancer. But yeah, I met you years ago, and at that time, she had introduced me to you, and this is your dad, and he does acting stuff. So we went to school. I remember seeing an ad of you or something, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. It's like, bro, this is Indigo's dad. He's on TV. And so it's for me to see that at that age of like 16, 17, always cool because for me it's like it can happen. You know, there are people standing in that space. So I don't know. I just thought I'd say that to you, and I wanted to share with the audience. I don't know. For people out there that are doing something, just know you're standing in that place for someone else that's coming up. So hold fast to that, and like you said, be resilient in that, and really take those talents and use them. So I just want to commend you, bro. That was cool for me, and so seeing you in those spaces, I just thought, man, it just seemed like being on TV was like, there's no way anyone's going to be on TV. So seeing you, who I just met, I went to your house a couple of times and I thought it was just so cool. So, shop, bro.
When did you come over to our house?
This was 6th form, 7th form.
Was I at home?
You were at home.
Okay.
You were at home.
Yeah, no, hey, see the dad come out.
Whoa.
I just want to make sure that it was an appropriate time. But thank you so much, guys. So very blessed and always honoured. To be honest, I'm always surprised when people ask me to even come and talk in there. Wow. But hey, that's just dealing with my low self-esteem and stuff. So I truly appreciate the opportunity. And to all our viewers that are watching, again, I said at the beginning, but especially for our young people, don't live down to the stereotypes. Walk out, the purpose that you were put on this earth for. God bless you. And again, thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you also. Also, we have a gift for you. Every guest that comes on, Brian, we always give them a caricature or cartoon of how we envision them to be. And so this is on behalf of the Mandate team also. This is for you, Brian.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh. Oh. Before I started my carnivore diet. Yeah. Oh, man, this is beautiful. Oh, thank you so much.
No, thank you. So thank you so much for your time, Brian.
Man,
thank you
beautiful.
so much. And so, but before we finish off, also, is there anyone that you can think of that you can recommend to come on the podcast? You think, man, you should have this person, perfect for to be on the podcast.
Shucks. I didn't know you asked that question. There's a few, but the one that just comes to mind, if you haven't already had him, is Mr. John Pulu. This week is Tongan Language Week 2024, nice. And Sione John is a great servant of our Tongan community, the unofficial mayor of Otahuhu for a number of years now, but a great servant, not just of our Tongan community, but also our Pasifika community as well. And again, the great work that he does on Tangata Pasifika. And of course, another great MC of great renown and great repute. So yeah, I would highly recommend him.
Awesome. John, man. We're going to hit you up, John. Otherwise, awesome. We always give our guests the last words of encouragement. One more word, or one more saying we want to mention to our viewers and our listeners.
Don't forget your roots, my friend. It is your responsibility to walk in everything that was sacrificed for you to have the life that you have now. You are only here because of those that have gone before you, those that have worked and sacrificed tirelessly to afford you the opportunities and the blessings that you have now. So if anything, I leave you with that. Yeah, don't forget your roots, my friend.
Marolava, Brian. And thank you once again, Brian. Please don't forget to subscribe, and we look forward to your well thought out comments. And as usual,
refine,
unlock,
and take charge.
All right.
Mandate.